Oh, okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Rich Sheffrin here. And yesterday I sent out an email about Dr. Joseph Riggio, and I implored you to go to his page and download what he had to share with you as a subscriber of mine. And so today, what I thought would be a lot of fun and also very useful for you is to get to know Joseph just a little bit better. I'm actually going to move my picture of me so that it's in a better place. But before I tell you and introduce Dr. Joseph Riggio, I want to tell you a little bit about just how this came to be. And basically, it's like this. I've always been somewhat success-driven, and what I found out once I achieved a certain level of success was that what was motivating me couldn't take me any further. And so I went to a place where I was basically unmotivated. I had my business and it was humming along and making me money and things were good, but I just felt like maybe I should be doing more and didn't know why I wasn't. And I was talking to a good friend of mine, Michael Cage, and I was telling him about this because it was bothering me that I just felt like I wasn't living life and doing the things that I ought or should enjoy or would enjoy or anything like that. And Michael Cage told me that he had a similar experience, not exactly the same, but similar, and that he had gone all around and tried to figure it out and worked with people and didn't get anywhere fast, and then finally found Dr. Joseph Riggio, and that Joe really changed everything for Michael and said, "You got to go to this guy." And Michael, I hold a lot of respect for Michael, and his opinion carries a lot of weight with me, and so just on that recommendation alone, I found Joseph and tracked him down and figured out when he was going to be in the United States because right now he's in Istanbul and actually just finished a presentation today for TED. And I then spoke to Joseph and we made arrangements for me to go to this seminar that he had, if you want to call it that, more like a workshop. And during that span of time, while I was waiting, Joseph was nice enough to send me a copy of a book that he had just finished. And when I read that book, it cemented the deal, so to speak. I was going at first to snowy, wintry New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey, which is not easy for me to leave sunny Florida. But I was going because Michael had said, this is the guy. But after I read the book, I didn't need Michael's suggestion anymore. Just reading the book told me this was the guy. And so I made that trek and have noticed changes evolve ever since then. And so I wanted to really share Joseph with all my subscribers because of the impact it's had on me and my belief that the impact it'll have on everyone who's watching this. And so that's why we're here. We're here because I wanted to, one, implore you that if you hadn't downloaded if you hadn't followed yesterday's link to download what Joseph was sharing, then you should, and wanted to pick up from there and kind of take it further along. And one of the areas, so Joseph, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, but I'm also going to throw the question at you at the same time. This way you can go from one to the other. There are really two areas, and so I think we can knock it all in one fell swoop, and you'll just go. One area that I want to talk about is just this, that there are people who are entrepreneurs and there are people who are on the cusp of being an entrepreneur. They want to be an entrepreneur, but they haven't really taken that action yet. And what stops them is this desire for certainty or security. And so what I find is that when people are stuck in that mindset, they often become a victim of people who are willing to sell that to people. You know, press this button and you will have success, or do these 3 simple steps, right, stupid people, and you will, achieve success. And we know that really business is not that way, that there's a lot less predictability in business in general. And anyone who sells you really like certainty, for the most part, is suspect. So that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question is this, that oftentimes when you have to take that journey, the entrepreneurial journey, that you realize that once you get to this next stage, you realize that there is risk involved. And because there's risk involved, you get frozen because you're unsure that you're willing to give up what you have now to get what you really want. And so a lot of people find themselves frozen in this place, right? Of I don't want to lose this, but I really want that, and they're miserable because they're stuck. And so those are the areas that I'd love you to talk about, those two. And so introduce yourself, and those are the two things that I think if you can reflect on and talk to the group, I think it would be immensely valuable.
Okay. Well, the first thing, I'm shocked that you didn't want to come up to New Jersey in the middle of a Jersey winter, man. You know, I'm out here in Istanbul. I left balmy New Jersey at 40-odd degrees to come to Istanbul at 0 and snowing. Beautiful here, by the way. Had a great trip, and it's a different TED Talk for those of you who did download the first one. This is actually another TED Talk, not the one that Rich pointed to.
That's how good the last one was. They invited you back.
So had a great time doing this one as well. And you know, my shtick is always going to be the same one. You know, I call myself a one-trick pony, and I pretty much do the same thing over and over in a bunch of different ways for different applications with different audiences with different people. And if I were going to sum it all up and kind of come to a conclusion around it, what I would say is, for me, the magic in what it is to be human is our facility to make decisions, to really have the independence of mind to choose what we're going to do with our lives and how we're going to act in the world. And that begins with perceptions, our ability to perceive information and take it in, both for what it is, but also what we make of it when we make sense of it.
Okay.
And that system isn't always so clean and neat in somebody's mind. So they neither see what's there, or they see it in such a distorted way that it becomes, you know, sometimes a monster for them, or sometimes an opportunity, like you're talking about the folks who will buy that idea of certainty, you know, push a button and a bank account will open for you into which tons of cash will flow automatically, is a distortion, folks. If you haven't figured that out yet, then you need to go back before you even watch my stuff to what Rich was pointing out since I met him, which has been a while now. And the next thing is that you then get the information. Let's say you clear up the perceptual thing and you start getting information in. You still have to make sense of it.
Sure.
So now I'm seeing this stuff. What is this stuff? And then the magic occurs. And the magic for me is the ability to make really high quality decisions about what you're going to do with that information and then take action. So that's the whole kind of continuum. You know, perception, sense-making, decision-making, action. And anywhere there, you can get distortions and confusions or get stuck, as you put it. And either getting a distortion that makes something completely other than what it actually is going to obviously lead you someplace other than where you think you're going to get to or be. Or getting stuck is going to eliminate the possibility of you ever doing the things you need to do to make the stuff in your life that you want to be happening happen.
Right.
And in some way, it's that simple. But the magic for me is in this decision-making piece. Whether I'm working with executives around the world in my international training programs for multinational corps, or elite athletes, or entrepreneurs and what I call private practice professionals, which is my main audience today. So I think the folks you call entrepreneurs, I think of as private practice professionals. Okay. People who make their living because they have some expertise they sell, knowledge or skills or something, right? And I think, you know, I just released this new program called UA Carbon, Unconventional Advice Carbon, which is a monthly program that I run with some audio and some text materials that we make available to my clientele. And in there was a particular PDF file we shared this very last month. Okay. And what I was talking about was what I think you're referring to is how do people get stuck? How do they not move from, I have this desire, even if I'm not sure exactly what it is, to I'm going to start doing stuff to find out what I can make happen in regard to my desire, right? And it's, number one, I don't know what I want to do. So they don't have a goal, they don't have an outcome, they don't have a direction to even begin taking, and they don't know how to get to one. And I'll come back to that one, okay? The next thing is they don't know how. I know what I want. I have a real clear sense that I'd like to, let's say, get into business. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to leave the thing I'm doing now because I feel very stuck in it or limited by it, and I want to do this entrepreneurial thing, but I don't know how. That's another way that people can get stuck, and that's just an information gathering piece. There's lots of good sources. You know, I've been pointing people to the Founders Club for years now, because I just think there's good information there. There's good information in the world. It's not that hard to get. It may take a little research to find out where it is, but you can get the information about how to do things. That, for me, is the easiest piece.
I agree. Yeah.
Third one is a monster for some people, and that's the will to do what it takes to make the outcome happen. So I know what I want. I know how to do it, but that means I've got to get up tomorrow morning and start doing stuff. And the bed's just so warm and comfy, my cat's curled up on my feet, whatever is going on there. So building the will to do things for some people is a massive step forward.
And what would you would you put in that third group, like, I know I don't want this, I think I want that, but I'm afraid if I reach for that, I lose this. And which group would you put that in?
I would put that somewhere between, let's say, number 3 and number 4.
Okay.
There's a fourth way, and for many people, the fourth way is the trickiest. And it's tricky because it's invisible, Rich. It's the unconscious material. It's the stuff that's out of mind for most people. They can't get to it directly. And it's all the beliefs and values they have that are influencing everything that they do, but they don't even know they're there.
Right.
That's the stuff that you learn from your parents, from school, from your best friend, from a book you read when you were 4, whatever it is, television shows, I don't care. And it's influencing you, and it's shaping almost everything you do, all the decisions you make and the actions you take, as well as the ones you don't. Like that idea that you said that you don't even realize how mired you are in your own comfort and how much that's holding you back from doing something else you really feel you want to be doing. Mm-hmm. Right? So you said, tell a little bit about myself. Let me give a quick piece of my own personal history because I can get this in a really personal level. And that was at 28 years old, I'm a young, successful architect. Someday I'll meet all the people who are going to listen to this and I'll give them the whole background story. So I'm going to go quickly through this. And I know that something's wrong. By all external measures, everything I've learned about what I should be doing and the life I should be building, I have success. And yet I'm not happy. And there's a brilliant guy out there by the name of Joseph Campbell who built this thing called The Hero's Journey, who speaks directly to this. He says, there's the young guy, young girl in the world that there's everything that seems to be going well for them. If you look at it from the outside looking in, their life is as it should be. But from the inside, they're experiencing this kind of malaise, discomfort, fugue state where there's just something that's a little bit off. They're not mentally unstable. They don't need psychiatric help or anything like that, but they're not quite right.
Right.
And what he says is this is the call to adventure. Now, I didn't have this language for it back then. I would have never used this explanation, but that's where I was. I was at this point where, for all intent and purpose, looking from the outside in, and even when I looked at my own life from where I was standing, it looked great. But from the inside, I knew it wasn't as complete or as integrated as I wanted or needed it to be. But I didn't know what to do about it. Again, keeping the story short, I found somebody who kind of walked me through the process, a guy named Roy Frazier, and I mentored with him for 7 years, and my world exploded and changed. I left the practice of architecture. I wound up getting divorced from a woman that I was actually in love with when I got divorced, but I knew we were going in different directions. I had a 2-year-old son. I had to figure out a way to make a life with him. And again, keeping within the sense of the short story, years later, I had met and married my second wife. We had a child together. And I was traveling, as I did at that time, around the world a whole lot. And on one of the major holidays, I think it was a New Year's Eve, I was somewhere in Asia, and my ex-wife and my current wife were having dinner together for the holiday. So we found a way to make it work, is what I'm pointing to. So, this stuff has a magical way of working out when you get this integration to happen. And that's really what I got from Roy. I also got the skill set about how do you do that? How do you guide somebody through this process? And this is the fourth one. The thing that you don't know that's there that limits you because it's hidden from you. You can't see it. And this is where you've got all the other pieces. You've got I know what I want. I know how to do it. I'm willing to do it. If somebody says, go jump over that hurdle, I just ask how fast I need to be running, and I start running. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing stopping me. And yet when I get to the hurdle, I freeze. Won't take the jump. And I want to, but I don't. And that's that fourth piece. So somewhere between 3 and 4, the will to do it, and the thing that holds you back, which I'm going to call the limiting beliefs, is where we get stuck in the comfort of our own lives. So at 28, it was the most difficult choice I had to make, which was to leave not my work. I could do that. That I could get past. But this marriage I was in, because I knew that that meant my life with this 2-year-old boy who's my son would have to change, and it was devastating. And the truth was, I'm not going to make it soft soap for the folks who are going to watch this. It was devastating. There were 3 months there where every day was a challenge of figuring out how am I going to make this life work that I've now chosen for myself. Down the road, 23 years later, I can answer it's a magical journey I've been on. And my son is entering a PhD program. He's doing tremendously well. We have a phenomenal relationship. As I said, my ex-wife and I get along. My current wife and I have a great marriage. All kinds of wonderful things happen. But for those 3 months, it was misery. So there may be times, even when you make the decision, where there are going to be challenges. And that's when you really need the support. You need the support of knowing you've made a decision which is right for you. Someone you can turn to and trust who's going to walk you through and help you through those times, whether it's a best friend or an older person who's been there or a guide like you who is available to draw down resources from, whatever it is. But you'll make it through. That's what I want people to know, is even if you go through some difficult times, there is another side. And in order to get to the other side, you do have to let go of what you have right now. And you may have to be willing to go through that moment of unknowing. And for me, this is also where the most powerful thing that we have available to us as humans can come from. Is not the ability to predict the future. It's not the ability to have certainty because we're such geniuses at working out the analysis of data. Mm-hmm. But the ability to act even when we don't. And this is really probably the most powerful thing I work with and offer to the clients that I help, is how to be comfortable with uncertainty. How to move in the face of chaos. Because you can trust your own intuitions and what's available to you from the inside that allows you to take a step forward. And I learned this as much from Roy as I did from the other clients I've worked with since then over the last 20 years, who are what I call elite performers. So I've worked with, for instance, some athletes who are in high-pressure, high-speed situations. One of the guys that I know really well was the British motorcycle racing champion. And at the time that he retired, he was the third motorcycle rated racer in the world. Okay. So pretty darn good. So these are decisions being made at close to 200 miles an hour. Okay. And your knee is millimeters off of the asphalt. And you can't process information that fast. So you've got to know how to trust all of those sensational experiences that I call intuition, but they're not hoochie-goochie stuff. This is not voodoo. This is 10 years or 2 years or 6 months, whatever it is, of intense learning and knowing when that sensation comes up, go with it. When it's not there, stop and reconsider the situation or do something else. And you begin to feed that loop into people, Rich, and they get really good at knowing which things to jump forward with and which things to just say no to. And if the only thing that people got from this conversation you and I are having is the idea that there are times where it's okay to say no, absolutely and definitively, that would have great value.
I agree. And I also think, though, that if people are in a stage where they're not able to say no, because they're not sure, right, but they can't say yes yet, then is your advice work on the inside part so that you have more confidence in being able to make a decision one way or the other, or would there be some other advice?
When I say a definitive no, I'm probably not talking to people who are in the situation that you're referring to because they don't know yet how to say no like that.
Right.
For me, a definitive no is you know yourself well enough to be able to trust those signals. So the first thing you have to do before we can even talk about how do you get to a very definitive yes or a very definitive no is how do you get to know yourself well enough to know who you are so that you can go, this is the signal that comes up when I should walk away, and this is the one that comes up when, even when the evidence seems contrary, I should act on it anyway. Okay? And you and I have talked about this, and I use this phrasing, this is part of your life story. And most people aren't living their life story. They're living a story that's been imposed upon them since they were born. So I think you used the phrase in the letter, the fish in the water can't find the water.
Mm-hmm.
All you've known since you were born is the story you've been told. So the place to begin is find the story that's actually there, that's not the one you've been told, but is yours. And that's where I would say you begin. So I guess it's on the inside to answer the question directly that you asked.
Introspection.
Introspection of a very particular kind, yes.
Any questions to ponder for people to kind of start moving in that direction, to start getting it in that sense?
I'm going to be a bit self-serving in a way here.
Okay, sure.
And also hopefully serving the people who are listening. And that is, I think I addressed this in some interesting ways, actually in that video you referred them to. So I actually would say go start it. It's sitting on a website. You don't have to do anything to watch it. Just push a button and it starts playing. So there's no cost other than the time it takes to look at it. So I'd actually start there. And for me, this idea of the life story is so powerful because it's not just intellectual. It's also the experience you have in your whole body, this sensational experience in the world. And one of the places we get that in the modern era that we're living in is through film. So one of the things I would say is start noticing the stories that have always captivated you. When you were a little boy or a little girl, what did you read? And what was it about the stories you read when you were a little kid that really caught your attention? What was it about those characters that you admired or was attractive to you? There's a hidden piece of information in there. When you find yourself going to the movies today, which movies draw your attention? You know, if the movies that you go see are slash and burn movies and super adventure movies and, I Spy movies, well, it's going to tell you something about the kind of person you are. And you're looking for that. Intellectual movies, that also tells you something about who you are. So start paying attention to the things that fascinate you when there's nothing you're going to get from it other than a sense of satisfaction or pleasure. And you'll be actually, in your hands, you'll have a mirror of something about what's true for you on the inside in your own psyche.
Because those stories are calling out to you something.
Absolutely.
All right.
And for me, part of those stories are the professionals that I admire. So the people who built businesses, it's not just any business. I'm not interested in any business. I don't read a lot of books about, big corporate tycoons. That's never been the pull for me. But I read every book I can get my hands on about the self-starter who had some fascinating idea and then pursued it with gusto and has a multinational company as a result of it. Those stories fascinate me.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, before this video kicks out again, I think we should wrap this up. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure what time is it there?
Oh, it's on its way. It looks like 2 o'clock in the morning here.
All right. Yeah. So, so once again, I appreciate you staying up late. And any final words of wisdom, advice? Where can they find out more about you? I know that they can look at the link that's going to be in the email and probably also on this page. But just if you want to, anything else you want to share before we cut it.
I think there's probably something that just came to mind as you're asking that was something you whispered in my ear. And so I'll read it back to the folks who will watch us have this conversation. And that is, we were having a conversation about how to position businesses and branding. And I asked you a few questions for advice, really, in my own business. And you were kind enough to share some input from your side as a client talking to me.
Right.
And what you said was, there are different kinds of businesses, Joseph, and some of them are really easy to get, and they're obvious, and then you can handle them in a certain way. There's other businesses that demand you to think and commit a bit. And the kind of business you have, Joseph, is the one where you demand people to think and commit a bit. And so I think that's fair to share with the audience and say, I think what I have to offer is some great stuff for the right people. I don't think it's for everybody, and I don't think anything's for everybody. And I think you should run like hell if somebody tells you what I have is definitely for you because you're human and that's enough to qualify you. That's a dangerous qualification in my mind.
Or a limit on your credit card.
Exactly. So I think that really I would like them to start where we're pointing them. Gotcha. Go and watch the video. I'm really pleased with it. There was some fun stuff I got to do when I was with the folks in Greece, and I think that opens a window into some of the things I like to talk about and work with people on. I think that the book chapter that I'm putting up there, I put there for a real specific reason because it also gives people both value and a sense of whether or not there's an opportunity for a relationship with me, because that really speaks to the kind of person I want to talk to. And then, we're giving the audio available there as well, where people can just download that. And that takes them to a whole nother conversation, which is what brought to mind what you said to me about being deep, which is, for me, the real process is based in the somatic experience, getting to what I call your success blueprint. And how are you when you're actually operating at your best, when, for you, you're doing what it takes to be unstoppable, and you can trust those decisions. And that audio, I think it's about 45 minutes or so, Rich, I'm not sure, 50 minutes, it's under an hour, just under an hour, is a process where I walk people through literally how to experience for themselves that singular moment where they're in that somatic, body-based experience of what it's like to be at their best. And even if it's only for an instant, they'll get, oh, I get it. Like this, Joseph was saying, I can make decisions that I'll know for me are right or wrong, yes or no. So those three things. I mean, and then from there, if anybody's interested, they can go down the rabbit hole with me. Yeah. Tons of information right on that website. And if you have any questions, just pick up the phone, call Rich. He's happy to take calls at all hours of the night and day and answer anything you want to know about me.
Yeah, sure. My cell phone. Using that.
Well, thanks for tonight. I appreciate it. It's just such a pleasure chatting with you for any reason, and this was great to talk to your people as well.
Cool. So have a great night. Have a safe trip, and I'll be speaking to you in 2 weeks.
Great. Take care.
Bye, Joseph.
Cheers, man.
Everyone, click the link below. Bye-bye.